This is Valmiki Ramayan, Season 7, Episode 16. Ravan prepares for the final battle. Lakshman had killed Indrajit, the crown prince of Lanka. The Rakshas troops panicked. They dropped their weapons and fled in terror in all directions. Dudruvur bahuda bhitah Rakshasa shatashodishah. The Vanaras roared and cheered. They gathered around Lakshman and congratulated him. But Lakshman was grievously injured. He leaned on Vibhishan and Hanuman as they all went to report the victory to Ram and Sugriv. Ram was delighted to hear about Lakshman's triumph. He knew that this was a massive blow for Ravan. Ram asked Sushen to give medical aid to Lakshman and the other injured soldiers. Sushen attended to them all, and soon they felt much better. In Lanka, Ravan was utterly devastated when he heard that his son Indrajit was no more. At first, he fainted from the shock, and when he regained consciousness, he was beside himself with grief. He cried bitterly, Mama nama tvaya veer, gatasya yamasadanam, preta karyani karyani, viparite hivartase. Upon my death, you should have done the last rites for me. How wrong it is that I must do the last rites for you. My son, the greatest of all Rakshas warriors, you had defeated Indra. How could you lose to Lakshman? Why did you leave us all? Why did you leave this throne, this Lanka, and all your people? And then slowly, through the grief, bubbled up a wild rage. Ravan's eyes blazed with fury, even as they dripped tears of grief. They were like a pair of flaming lamps dripping oil. They had killed his son. Now he would make them pay for it. He drew his sword and thundered. Indrajit had made it appear as though he had killed Sita. Now I will kill her for real. Thankfully, one of his advisors, Suparshva, intervened. O king of the Rakshasas, you have studied all the Vedas, Veda Vidya Vratasnatah. How can you think of killing a woman like this? Please, show your anger on the battlefield. Destroy your enemies there. Ravan sank down to his throne. He knew what he had to do, but he had still not recovered from the shock of Indrajit's loss. He told the Rakshasas surrounding him, all of you go to the battlefield now and focus on only one thing, killing Ram. I will come in the morning. The Rakshas forces stepped out and clashed with the Vanar army. This time, Ram was in the thick of the fighting. He moved around and fired his arrows so swiftly that the Rakshasas could hardly see him. They could only mutely observe the deadly destruction he caused. News of the terrible losses on the front lines trickled back to Lanka. By now, almost every family had lost someone in this war. The grief-stricken Rakshasis sat around lamenting the deaths of their loved ones, husbands, brothers, and sons. And then, Valmiki makes an interesting turn in his narration. He devotes an entire sarga to the Rakshasi's lament, and their words give us a fascinating insight into how the women of Lanka thought about all this. And it is clear that the women blamed two people for what had happened, Shurpanakha and Ravan, and they held nothing against Ram. They said, what was Shurpanakha thinking? Ram has all the great qualities and she has none. Sukumaram mahasatvam sarvabhuta hiteratam tam drishtva lokavadhyasa hina rupa prakamita. The mighty, young, handsome Ram is devoted to the welfare of the whole world. How could that ugly woman lust for him? She deserves to be killed. Note, the Rakshasis do not even mention Lakshman injuring Shurpanakha. For them, Shurpanakha started all this and deserved a much worse fate. And regarding Ravan and his idea of kidnapping Sita, they said, Virad grabbed Sita's hand, and within moments Ram had killed him. That should have been enough to understand what Ram is capable of. Paryaptam tan nidarshanam. And then Ram killed Khar and the entire Rakshas force at Janasthan. But Ravan still did not get it. He picked a fight with Ram. Ravanasyapanitena durvinitasya durmateh ayam nishtana ghorah shokena samabhiplutah. Ravan is arrogant and evil-minded. It is because of his missteps that this terrible destruction has befallen us. If only Ravan had listened to Vibhishan. News of the worsening situation on the front lines also reached Ravan. And now, there was no one to turn to. It was time for the king himself to step into the battlefield. He thundered, Kalpyatam me rathashighram Kshipramaniyatan dhanuh Anuprayantu mam yuddhe Ye trashishta nishacharah. Get my chariot ready at once and bring me my bow. And get every single Rakshas warrior who is still left to follow me into the battle. Ravan had suffered many setbacks in this war. But he was not yet done. He would now throw himself and whatever forces he still had into one final battle. Iti ha asa. That is how it happened.